What's going on, everybody? This is going to be a hopefully not terribly painful video, but I am going to go ahead and do it. The picture that you saw there was me and my wife at the time, Ashley. Got some other pictures. Got lots of pictures of her. That was us holding our daughter. She's 16 now, but this is not going to be, I guess, the typical video that I've done. And I was working on an outline earlier this week, late last week. Do I have my notifications off here? I guess not. Go ahead and do that. So the subject of this video is going to be Ashley, and I don't know. I guess the best way to do this is to start from the beginning and just go to now. Like I said, I was working on not a script, but just an outline to kind of have things organized in my mind, and they are. I mean, they're in my mind, but they're in these little pockets or folders, I guess. And you know, they're not really. I can't really organize them the right way to get them across, to talk about them. So I'm just going to do, I guess, the best that I can here. So in 2003, it was about this time of year, I met a girl. She was the cousin of a girl that I went to school with. We were, I guess, loose acquaintances, friends. We talked in school, and that was about it. Ashley went to the same school that I did. It was a pretty large school for the area, and I never knew her. I never met her while we were in school. Went to the same school. It was about 2,000 people that went to that school, and never saw her, never met her, never knew anything about her until about 2 years after I graduated. I graduated high school in 2001, and in 2003, on Halloween, I met her for the first time. I don't know. I tend to not believe in love at first sight. Heard people talk about that and say that, and it's stuff you hear about in movies, and whatever. But I saw this girl, and that was it. I knew that at a minimum I had to know more about her. I wanted to be around her. I liked. There was something about her. I can't explain it to this day still. But so I talked to her cousin, the girl that I knew that I went to school with, and said, who is she, and how do you know her? And she explained it was her cousin, and she had just gotten out of a bad relationship, long-term relationship, and it probably wasn't the time to try to see anyone else or anything like that. So I said, well, here, just give her my number, and go from there. I guess if she doesn't want to call me, she doesn't have to call me. If and she doesn't, then I probably won't ever talk to her again. But so waited a few days, and she called me. And at the time, just before that, I'd been fired from the ambulance service that I worked at for something pretty stupid. Had someone that came up to the ambulance, and I said something over the loudspeaker, the PA, and he complained to the director. Granted, I shouldn't have done that, but I was 19 and stupid, and didn't want him to keep hitting the ambulance that I was working in, because whatever. So I'd gotten fired. I'd gotten kicked out of my apartment, staying with my mom at the time. And so for the previous 3 years, I've been trying to get back in the Navy, from where I was in for about a month in 2001. So later on in 2004, I'd actually been able to re-enlist and went back to boot camp. But at the time that me and her met, that's what I was trying to do. That's what I was doing. And she was living with her parents, and she was getting ready to start nursing school in December. at a school here in Louisville, Kentucky. She wanted to be a nurse practitioner, a neonatal nurse practitioner, and she loved babies and loved that idea, and that's what she wanted to do. So she was going to start nursing school and start working and go from there and try to get her RN and then get the nurse practitioner qualifications from there and then work in a neonatal or a NICU. So she called me and we met and started kind of dating, I guess, and seeing each other. At the time, I was seeing someone, and I pretty much told him, this is over. Didn't really explain why in too much detail, but this person knew that I really loved this other person, and so they agreed to not fight it and not argue about it and make a big deal about it, to their credit. So things got fairly serious very quickly, and within about 2 months of meeting her, I'd moved in with her. She lived in a town about 45-minute drive away from where I live at, from here in Louisville. So in northern Clark County. Lived there with her mom and stepdad. So moved in with them and got a job at a fire department. At the time, she was working at a movie theater, so that was kind of nice to have a girlfriend that worked in a movie theater. A lot of movie theaters are going bankrupt now, going out of business, and especially with the pandemic that's going on, it's not really good to have people in close proximity to each other. But things back then in 2003 and 2004 were different. So she would go to work, and I got the job at the fire department doing working for the EMS service side of it as an EMT, and went along. And in February, found out that she was pregnant, and we'd kind of both known that something was amiss, if you will, and that she was late in getting her period, and it was kind of normal for her to an extent to be somewhat late, not that late though. So got kind of concerned. She went and got I think I still have them somewhere. She got some pregnancy tests, and we didn't pass that test. So took the pregnancy test that came up. We read them. I wasn't totally understanding what the lines and the squiggles and all that stuff meant, but got the information that it was that she was pregnant. So same day that happened, I found out that I was going to be able to re-enlist in the Navy, and also found out that day that I'd gotten a job at the fire department, working for their EMS service there. So that was in February of 2004. It's February 4th. Never forget it. And so going forward from there, I went to boot camp in April of 2004, April 6th. Went to Great Lakes, which is where the Navy has their recruit training at. Went there for the second time. I'd been there before, but had a medical separation in 2001 due to my vision. Had went through the process to get back in. That was a long ordeal, but was able to do it. Boot camp was very hard on both of us. It was harder on her, I have to believe. She was pregnant. I was not there for that critical time. We through the calculations and everything, we estimated that she got pregnant probably in December, and so in April she would have been about 4 months at that point. That's when a lot of things start happening. And I was there until June when I graduated boot camp. Completed boot camp. Her and my mom, my grandma came up there and saw me graduate, and that was a very, very good moment for everyone, for me, for them. very proud of that achievement, and so were they. So um, during boot camp, I was supposed to go to like a 3 week training course, very quick, and basically just to be I guess you'd call it a deck seaman, a seaman ATD. It was a training course, and you go there a few weeks, learn about boats and ships, and that's about it. It's kind of a crash course sort of thing. And then I was going to go out to the fleet. Well, during boot camp, they came back and offered to reclassify and said, hey, if you want to do these kinds of jobs, we have these jobs open. The only thing they offered me was they said, we have a corpsman spot open if you want to do that. So other people got that happened to other people in my division. They were asked if they wanted to basically change their contract. They'd sign a new contract, and they, go from there. So that decision to change the job that I was going to have in the Navy changed how long I was going to be at Great Lakes. It changed some other things too. So I said, yeah, because that's what I wanted to do before. When I was separated the first time, didn't complete boot camp for that. So corpsman in the Navy is like a medic. They have a lot of limited type duties as far as nursing, like an LPN, licensed practical nurse in some states. They're trained to the extent of like an EMT advanced or a paramedic, depending on what state you're in. They can do a lot of different things just coming out of the school. I was already an EMT before I went there. But you can go to other states after you've been in the Navy for a while. You can challenge and get different things and do things off the clock or off duty, I guess you will. And then there's specialty schools the Navy has, trainings and those kinds of things you can go through and become a surgical technician or X-ray, all the different specialties that there's in medicine. It's something that has always interested me, and so I was able to pick up on that and get that opportunity, and so I took it. The school at the time that I signed up for, Corps School, was at Great Lakes, Illinois, as well. So I didn't really have to leave the base at all when I graduated boot camp. Just went across the street, literally, and that was my boot camp. So I remember very, very fondly having a medical appointment, and for my eyes, they flagged my eyes and said, "Hey, your eyes aren't that great." I said, "Yeah, I've gone through this before." And so I went over to the hospital side of the base and had an eye exam, a series of eye exams to see if I was going to be able to stay in the Navy. And during that, I remember had a calling card that we would use at the phones at the Navy Exchange. And I remember, I knew the appointment was going to come up. I knew when I was going to be going over there. I knew what time it was. So I took the calling card with me, got over to the hospital, changed out of the recruit garb, I guess, the gun belt and the recruit baseball cap. It marks you clearly as a recruit versus a sailor. Took that stuff off and dropped in the bathroom somewhere. Then I went to the phone booth, to the phone in the hospital, and called Ashley to see how she was doing. I wanted to hear her voice. I remember getting in trouble during boot camp. During an inspection, we had everything was subject to inspection. Obviously, your barracks, your bunk, your uniform, I kept a picture of her in my baseball cap, kind of laminated it with some tape, and carried it around with me wherever I went. The letters, the mail that we would get from home. That was the letters that I got from her were a source of. I looked forward to it. I enjoyed it. They always smelled really good. So, I remember one time she sent me a care package, and in boot camp the division was made up of 80 men and 80 women. 40 men and 40 women for a total of 80. So. We slept in different compartments, different rooms or bays, and then we'd have training. We'd come together and have that class training or that practical training, whatever it would be. We'd go back to our different sides of the building and to sleep at night and stuff. We had mail call one time, and I got a package. They didn't give us knives. I guess they didn't want us killing our instructors. Afraid they'd been mean to us the week before, so we had to use our key, our locker key, in order to open mail. I remember getting this package one time, and it was a big, huge box, like a priority mail flat rate large shipping box, and it had all kinds of stuff in there, all kinds of candies and I think some drinks, and it had something that I got a lot of attention for when I was in boot camp. And when you go to boot camp, you have to buy this Prel stuff, green Prel. I'll never forget it. We also had to buy a pink loofah type sponge. They called it a poofy. They made us get pink, so everyone had the same thing, so you couldn't gripe about losing whatever color. But the women there couldn't have makeup during that time, and they also couldn't have their scented perfumes and body washes and whatever that had the same Prel crap that we had. So Ashley sent me a care package when I was in boot camp, and it had 2 bottles of herbal essences. That was my favorite shampoo at the time. Still enjoy it to this day. Pulled the box out, and I had to try to get to it. It took probably 15-20 minutes to get into the box because it was sealed up with that much tape. But I got into it, and they went through the items to make sure there was no drugs or contraband, I guess. And they pulled out these 2 bottles of herbal essences, and every single woman in that division looked at me with jealousy. So they didn't get my herbal essences, though. I went through boot camp and finished that. And that was that. The weekend I graduated, we saw each other after 8 weeks, and that was something I really was glad to see her. Glad to see my grandma. Ashley had gotten a lot more pregnant at that point. She was able to be kind of visible, kind of showing a little bit more than she had before I left. So went around Chicago and had a really good time and got ready for what was to come next, and that was going to be Corps School. And so went over to Corps School, and Corps School was different. You were able to leave every weekend, pretty much starting the first weekend you were there. So as soon as I could, I remember flying home, and I had this routine. I'd fly home and get a rental car, or her family would pick me up at the airport, and we'd go back to their house and spend the weekend there with her. And it was Friday that I'd leave the base, and then Sunday night I'd have to go back and do the whole thing in reverse, and have to go through the whole thing of going from the house to the airport, and then I'd get on the plane, fly up to the airport in Chicago. Have to get on a train to go toward the city, toward downtown Chicago, and then I'd get either walk or get a cab to go to the regional train station for the metro to go back up to Great Lakes. So did that pretty much whenever I could, because I wanted to come home and see her, see how she was doing. At first there was some issues with some constipation, and that was just normal. And it didn't seem out of the ordinary to me, the constipation or issues she had with her stomach that played into things later on, though. So in November of 2004, I was discharged for fraudulent enlistment, is what it said on my DD-214, my discharge papers. And the fraudulent enlistment part came from when you go through a security and background check to get a security clearance in the military, they go through health records, and the federal privacy law and state privacy law doesn't apply to that process. They're looking to see if you're a security threat to the country, and so that privacy law doesn't apply to that process. They found some medical records from when I was a kid that I specifically was told not to mention, and because I'd already been in the Navy once for a little bit, and they said my eyes weren't good enough, so didn't mention that because I was told not to by the recruiters that I had, and so I didn't. When it came time for the military, the government, to do their background check, they found these records when I was 15 that I was given medications and those kinds of things for depression and ADHD. And then records going back before that. When I turned 15, I stopped taking all the medicine because I had a recruiter tell me for taking the medicine. I don't take them anymore. So I did that. I don't know. I was discharged with a general discharge under honorable conditions, which isn't an honorable discharge. It is and it isn't. But that was the reason I was discharged for, is because I withheld information that I should have disclosed. I got out in November of 2004. Kaylee was born in August of 2004, so before I was discharged. I remember they called me when I was in the bathroom shaving one morning and asked if I was, me, basically. And I said, yeah. And they said, why? And they said, well, your wife went into labor. And I was on the upstroke shaving my face when they said that. So I'm surprised I didn't cut myself open with a razor. But ran out of the door and waited for several hours after that until I was able to get home due to a lot of paperwork glitches and issues. By the time I got home, I was about 6 hours late for our daughter's delivery, and that was upsetting, but at least I was able to come home. There's a lot of people that don't even get to come home at all for their child's birth or delivery. So I was discharged in November 2004 and came home, and that was an adjustment. That was a very difficult period in my life and a lot of other people's lives at the time because of what was going on in the world. Kind of had some hit and miss jobs here and there. During all this, we had financial problems. I didn't have a job, or I'd have one and I'd lose it because of something silly, or I'd get fired, or I'd be late and I'd get fired for that. And I would come home and have to, or one time I got fired for being late, worked at a hospital, and I sent Ashley a text message, and she said something back, and I got home and she was there holding the baby crying, and she was crying through her words, and she said it's not just about me and you anymore, it's about her, and every stupid thing you do affects both of us. And I think at that point something snapped in me, and I realized I need to quit doing stupid stuff that I do, like being late. So later on, we had, when I was discharged at first, we lived with her parents, and it was difficult doing that. It was difficult being in someone else's house that wasn't your own, where you had to it wasn't necessarily about the rules, but it was, being micromanaged and told how to do certain things that you may not have agreed with, but you had to somewhat give some room for that other person or for those other people. So it was very difficult, but we eventually ended up getting our own apartment. We went back and forth with having issues, and we got through it. And I don't know. I feel like I'm meandering on here, but I'm going to try to get to the heart of what this is. And me and Ashley weren't perfect. I wasn't, neither was she. But we did love each other very much, and I still do love her. She had some issues with some of her stomach type things, with constipation, that kind of stuff, and that was relatively minor. Fast forward until May of 2008, and that was the first time that she was seen, in the hospital, and had an issue with the severity, I guess, that they felt like they needed to admit her in the hospital to deal with that issue. And so for the first time, that's when that happened, was in May of 2008. It was very hard that first time, having her admitted in the hospital, and me, at that point, I was in the middle of paramedic class. We had our daughter at the time. She was, she was 4, getting ready to turn 4. And, trying to find, a place for her, someone to watch her because I had to go to work still. I had class. Had to go and see her and spend time with her, and I had to get the baby and take her up there to see Ashley in the hospital. It was very difficult trying to juggle, all that stuff around. And, but we found a way to make it work. So, the evaluation, the test they did in the hospital, the doctors, the conclusion they came up with was that she had Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease it's got different reasons that they think it comes along. Some of it, a lot of it, they think is hereditary. It's not something you can catch. It's like a contagious, like a flu or something like that. But tends to prefer certain groups of people. And if you have it, it can also flare up or show itself during times of stress, and make itself worse. You have a flare up during that time. You're stressed out or physically ill or mentally ill during that time. So at a certain point, they did a lot of tests, and they found out that, hey, you've got Crohn's disease. This is what it is. This is what it does. And they had a plan. They developed a plan to deal with that and to treat it and to address it. They did that for a while. Where's my voice? They did that for a while, and she seemed to respond to the medicines, seemed to respond to the treatments. She would be in the hospital for a period of time, a week, week and a half, 2 weeks. Would get out, would have follow-ups, would be out of the hospital for a while, and then would have a flare-up, and then would go back to the hospital. So we go through this cycle of being in the hospital, being out of the hospital, being on the way back to the hospital. During the course of the time that she was being seen by the doctor she was seen by, she had a lot of different specialists that she saw. And those included gastroenterologists, endocrinologists, to deal with some side effects from the medicines they put her on for the Crohn's disease, for the gastrointestinal problem. She saw a pain management specialist to deal with the pain that she had from the Crohn's disease. Several other specialists that she saw to deal with issues. She had a primary care doctor. She also had some other specialists that helped to kind of treat in the course of all this. At some point, the doctors that she had, for different reasons, and I have my suspicions as to why, but for some reason they decided, or several reasons they decided, that they weren't going to be as aggressive with treating her, and they weren't going to see her anymore. We had one doctor that he flat out said, "We're done dealing with you. You're not responding the way that our other patients have responded, and so we're just not going to see you. You're free to go somewhere else. We'll take your file and send it to whatever other specialist you can find, but you're not responding the way that every other patient that we've had has responded, so we don't know what else to do." I think a lot of that had to do with the insurance company. Our insurance company that I had through the private service that I worked for at the time, that she was covered under, they would send us bills for the entire service, the entire claim, or whatever it was, and they weren't paying anything. And we wondered why, and they did a pre-existing condition at the time. This is back in 2008, 2009. At the time, declining coverage for a service or in total was legal for pre-existing conditions. The Health Care Act, some years later, rectified that. But at the time this was going on, in 2008, 2009, that wasn't the law. It wasn't the case. So they could say that you had abdominal pain, you went to the hospital for abdominal issues, they would say, well, it's pre-existing before you had our insurance. So I believe that that's why they quit treating her seriously. I believe that's why they backed off their treatments. I believe that's why they more or less didn't care anymore. And I still think about that a lot, that they just gave up on her and abandoned her. Um, at the time this was going on, that this turmoil and stuff with her and with us was going on, I had completed but I was about halfway through, but toward the end of the year, I'd completed the paramedic class that I had started um, for the private service that I worked for. So during the summer, about July, is when I went through the IV training portion of that paramedic class. So, and just after that, we had started, it was July 4th weekend actually in 2008, that I had started ER clinicals. And so we were, due to the way the clinical program is set up, is that we were allowed to start IVs on patients in the emergency room, as covered and supervised by a nurse and by a doctor ultimately. So I got a lot of IV practice. Fast forward a few months, and her being sick, and the thought came to both of us that I can do IVs, so why don't I just bring some stuff home and maybe start an IV on her, give her some fluids when she gets so dehydrated, when she throws up, or nausea, vomiting, whatever it may be. And I'm gonna stop right there and make it in the part that follows this one. So